Hello, everyone. Hello. Thank you for joining the Earth Angel Experience podcast. We're a little bit early by a minute, so I'm just going to wait. But thank you guys for tuning in. I'm Daisy. Hello. Hello. Hi, everyone. Thanks for tuning in. There might be a little lag. Okay, I see Kate on, so let me go get you, Kate. Hello. Hi, Jenny. Hello, my
Hello.
dear. Hi. You have to turn
There we
your phone
go.
the other way. Yes. There you go.
I'm good. How you
How are you?
doing?
I'm doing so great. Oh my gosh. Thank you everyone for tuning in. So Kate, we were on early, so let me just give my little spiel before. So just thank you everyone for tuning into the Earth Angel Experience podcast. This is a podcast where we really speak about and talk all things spiritual, whether it's anything relating to being psychic or being a medium or working with all things beyond the five senses. This is really the podcast for you. If you guys have any questions, feel free to leave your questions in the comment below. You can also DM me, or in this case, DM Kate if you have any specific Reiki questions. I'm so honored to welcome Kate Finnick onto the show.
Oh,
Kate,
oh,
thank
my
you for being
pleasure. I'm so
here.
excited. Absolutely.
Are you excited? Awesome. So Kate is just an amazing soul, guys. One fun fact, Kate actually allowed me, she was my sensei, my Reiki master sensei. So now I'm a certified Reiki master through Kate. And so this is an honor, Kate, to have you here. I'm so happy that you're here with us. So Kate, you have and you're not only just an amazing soul. I mean, yes, you're a certified Reiki master, but you have a whole bunch of other amazing things that you've done in your career, all the things that you're currently working on now. For one, you're a meditation instructor, you're a mental health therapist, you're a doctor of naturopathy. I'm hoping I'm saying that right.
Naturopathy.
Is that how
Yep.
you say it? Yes. And one of the things that I really loved about the bio that we put up is just what you speak about the triangle of wellness. And I think that's really important in just, getting ourselves centered, and just really trying to get that balance between the mind, body, and soul, rather than the practices that are outside and does not include, our soul purpose, our life purpose, whether or not we're looking into other things beyond what a doctor may prescribe per se. So can we talk a little bit about that and your ideas of merging the three and why that's so important for wellness and health
Absolutely.
in
I think
general?
that it really, to me, has become like such the core of everything because, we do tend to be such a fragmented society on so many levels, and we're very specialized. Everything's become specialized. And, I'll use the analogy of the medical field, just because it's such a clear example. We tend to go to doctors, and the very first thing you ever hear people saying is how many doctors they go to because it's the specialist, right? And the doctors tend to be trained to look at us in parts. And that's where, now you're starting to see medicine open up, and different styles of medicine come in, integrative medicine, functional medicine, and all of that, where they're looking at kind of the bigger picture, exactly.
The whole
Everything is just so interconnected, and it all comes down to, well, obviously what we're going to talk about today, but energy. But the energies are all always constantly interacting. And so if we're just looking at one piece, the physical piece of it, absolutely there are things we can do, and we can put band-aids on it. But if we're
is it targeting what's
abs-
really happening on a soul deeper level,
or if
which is
actually, if you want to
exactly.
say, if you look only at the soul level, or if you look only at the emotional level, I mean, that's a piece of it. But there is a physical element, and you need to look at that too. So that's why it is, I found, and as I experimented with my own self on my journey, and of course with my family. I always say, my poor family's been my guinea pigs, actually. Um, but the point is, as I've seen and tried things with all of us, and then of course branching out to working with people, the more that I understood. You know, I came from a mental health background, so I was very focused on more of what was going on up in the head and um, so
Right.
that, you know, and that was great and you can help. But then when I started seeing the other pieces and then learning about more of the physiology of our bodies and all of that, and started seeing how it kind of all interwove, it was amazing.
Yes. And that's kind of like when it clicks, when we realize, hey, yeah, so I'm taking care of this up here, but what about what's going on over here on a deeper level? So with that, I want us to just get right into Reiki. So this is amazing. Again, guys, this Kate actually certified me. So she's my Reiki sensei. So she's just an amazing soul. And I'm honestly just so grateful and thankful for you to have introduced Reiki to me. So as you remember, Kate, I've always been very in tune, very spiritual. I've always been able to communicate with those on the other side, but it was something I couldn't explain or didn't fully understand. And I felt that Reiki for me was just that added, almost added information, if you will, that allowed me to kind of sync and understand everything, because I was always very sensitive to energies. So working with Reiki and now understanding how to use universal life force to work on others, you thinking about the Reiki precepts and even the symbols are so important. So I want to get into that, but we'll take a step back. Can you tell me in your own words what Reiki
Sure.
is? What is
It's
Reiki?
basically, there's so many forms right now of energy medicine, and Reiki is one type of energy medicine. And it's one of the ones, though, that interestingly enough can be the hardest to explain to people. Um, you know,
Yeah.
I've always been a very big follower of Wayne Dyer. I used to love when I would see him lecture, and he would talk in certain topics. He would tell people, he would say to the audience, okay, we're about to go into something that's going to sound very woo-woo. And like disclaimer, like, you know, just kind of open your minds and sit back a second. And even if it's new, you
Yes.
know, and Reiki is definitely that type of thing. Really what it is, what I tell people who have no familiarity with it, the easiest way to kind of to explain it to begin with is the idea of comparing it almost to acupuncture. Many people are more familiar with acupuncture. And really what it is that just like we have, if you start with your cardiovascular system, and we have veins and arteries that run through our body, and they, you know, bring the oxygen and the blood supply throughout our body and nurture the organs and keep it. And so that the more clear they are, the more open those arteries are, the smoother things go, and we, you know, we feel good, and we, you know, we're physically healthy. And it's when we run into blockages and things like that that we can have problems, right? We can have heart attacks, we can have strokes, all of these different things. We also have meridians, they're called, but they're in a sense that same type of concept, veins and arteries, but they're called meridians of energy that flow through our bodies. And they, you know, they go up and down, you know, from top to bottom. And then we have these things, the chakras, right, which are the center.
Oh,
And so
yes.
all these things, because what they're doing is they're constantly carrying energy from what we call, you know, the universal life force of energy, right? And that bigger energy, that one that sparked the very, if you break everything down into the molecules, subatoms, subparticles, nanoparticles, you get to a spark of energy, right? So it's constantly. So the more clear those pathways are, again, then the better that the energy can flow through our system and be feeding our, you know, our organs and feeding our minds and all of it. And so, as with anything, life creates blockages, right? And give us blockages from emotional experiences, from physical, you know, things, everything like that. And so that's where we then start to sometimes experience dis-ease in our body or in our mind or in our hearts, right? And so what Reiki is doing, just like with acupuncture, you know, acupuncture people, again, are more familiar. You go and they put needles on certain points on your body to help open up blockages. Reiki works on that same kind of philosophy. However, and this is why for some people it can be appealing, that's the beauty of all these forms of energy work, because we're all so different, right? Reiki is non-invasive.
Yeah.
And so for some people, that is a very important thing. You know, for some people, they're just not comfortable with it. you know, having a needle or things like that. So Reiki works where you can either do it hands-on, so you're literally putting your hands on the person, or, and this is why it's also such a beautiful thing for people who have either trauma in their background, or it works wonderfully with children who might be sensory issues or adult sensory issues.
Right.
You can keep your hand hovering. You don't have to actually even have contact. In fact, you can even do it from across the room. You can do Reiki even actually long distance. But I'm talking about if you're doing like in person, it can be as close.
A hands-on or hands-off. So are you saying, for those that might be new to Reiki, are you saying that what we're giving is energy? So how would you describe that process of the energy that we're giving? How are we obtaining this energy? Is it our energy? Is this energy that we're opening up or channeling to a higher source? Where is this energy coming from, and is this energy safe? Let's say people are on here have never experienced Reiki, or don't really know what it is, or if they feel that they're even religious, like they're probably feeling, is Reiki for me? Can I do Reiki? Can I receive Reiki
Right.
treatment? What would you say
First off,
to that?
everybody has Reiki. Everybody has the ability to do Reiki. It's not something that only certain people have, you know, that gift or that talent for. What happens though is that, again, we become kind of blocked from, because Reiki means Rei is about like spirit and higher spirit, right? And then Ki is, which is the Ki part of Reiki, is energy. So really what Reiki can loosely translate to is universal energy. So with Reiki, what you're doing as a practitioner, you're not giving your energy. You're basically like a conduit, pulling in that universal energy
Right.
and helping, you know, to bring it through to the person that you're, you know, giving Reiki to. Um,
And if I will, so it's almost as if you're a straw, right? So would you describe it as you're a straw? And if you are balanced and you're well and everything's operating, is it easier to receive information? Meaning you don't have any blockages, let's say in your chakras or your meridians or these energy centers in our body. How does that work with Reiki? Let's say if I am a Reiki practitioner, but I'm having an off day, my energy is off. Is it good for me to practice Reiki on other people or
it's
not, and
basically,
why
it
not?
comes down to, well, first off, let's just back up a step. The reason, because I know, you know, you could say, well, if everybody has Reiki, then why do people go and get, you know, certified in Reiki and all of it? It's really because
Right.
what happens is, think of it almost as Reiki, the certification for Reiki, it's taking you through a couple things. On the very practical phase, first off, you're learning. You're truly just learning what it is and how it works, which is just helpful to know and do. The second piece, though, think of it as you're turning your light bulb and you're going from a low wattage bulb, through the Reiki certifications. You get these processes called attunements. And really what that is the Reiki teacher, practitioner, master, because it has to be a third level person to do it, does attunements on the student. And what that's doing is, again, help amp up the wattage, so that you then are basically turning on your ability, your openness to receive energy from low wattage to
Yes.
high wattage. As well as a lot of what goes into the teaching of Reiki is the encouragement and the hope that that person is going to become regularly practicing Reiki on themselves, because you can do Reiki, and the more that you're
Right.
doing that, again, think of it as you're always kind of cleaning out the dust, cleaning out the
Yes. Cleaning out the debris, as I like to, the energetic, spiritual debris, as
absolutely.
I like to
And
say.
so, and then of course, the third piece of it is that if you are thinking that you want to be able to be someone who wants to offer Reiki to others, then there's an integrity to it. You know, it's that you want to be as clear for yourself, right? As clear in terms of providing. You want to have as deep an understanding of it as you can, you know, so there's an integrity piece as well. Now, in terms of, again, so it is important to know you're not giving your energy to someone when you practice. You're not giving, you know, in fact, it
Right.
used to be funny. There would be jokes going around, even in my family. And because, just disclaimer, my family now, my, you know, my wife and my son are very much into this lifestyle and everything. But the family that I was born into, that I came from, were very much not. They were familiar with anything. So I was always kind of that person they would look at and like shake their heads, kind of just so perplexed. And there would be a joke in the beginning, and I knew it was partly their discomfort because of not understanding.
Right.
Right. And
Because
they
they
would
didn't
say things like,
understand.
don't get Kate mad at you. She'll give you bad Reiki, and not give bad Reiki. Reiki in and of itself is about love energy. It's just universal energy, and
Yeah.
universal energy is love energy. So you don't have to worry like, oh gosh, what if this person has a vendetta against me? They're going to put a curse on me. They're going to send bad energy into me. Same thing in terms
Right.
of, again, it's not affiliated. And this is something that a lot of people don't understand. It's not affiliated with religion. So it can be very spiritual, right? It's
And so before we get into that, I want to go back a little. When you had said it's love, you mentioned love. Now, I truly believe, especially in my practice, that the more my heart center, my heart chakra is just filled with love, the energy just flows so easily and so effortlessly. So what would you say to those who are in training for Reiki, and that they're kind of in their head about, am I doing this right? Am I, because that's the number one thing, especially when someone's beginning. They're like, wait, am I doing this right? Am I? And then they become, the ego gets involved, and then they're kind of losing the point of what they're supposed to do, right? Which is really to stand back and do nothing.
absolutely.
So
Well,
can you
first off,
explain that?
welcome to the world of pretty much every human being in the world, right? We all suffer with, especially if it's something that we feel passionate about, that we want to do well. I don't care what field it's in, what area it's in, right? There's always that fear. If you're coming with that intention, you're doing something, you want to help, you want to be of service, right? Well, am I doing it right? Am I helping? Am I doing, very can
Right.
get caught up in that. I mean, even, again, with mental health, right? Therapists, beginning therapists are always, I don't know what I'm doing. Am I going to help this person? It always comes down to what I've come, and it's taken me years to because I think we all suffer from that at times. Giving it up. Just every time you hear yourself saying that, every time you hear that voice coming in, going back to, even if it's as simple as, sometimes I will just take my hands and place them over my heart chakra, sit for a moment and
Right.
breathe, and just say to myself, I'm breathing into the love. Because truthfully, as long as you are coming from that place of love, as long as you're tapping into that energy, that is such a powerful energy that it's almost like a whoosh that can go through.
It transforms. It truly does transform. It transforms environments. And this is when you were talking earlier about the distance Reiki. You can send Reiki distance. The person doesn't have to physically be in front of you. It's because that energy, that wave of love that you're sending, is so strong and powerful that you can actually send healing or send calming energies towards that other person. Can you talk a little more about that? How love can be sent via phone, via internet.
Definitely.
How does that work?
Again, that intention, it's about the intention, and it's about that power, that force, the energy force behind love is just super, super. It's like something on steroids, like it's like boom, right? And so again, Reiki is tapping into the energy, the universal energy, which has no boundaries. It has no walls. It has no limit. Totally.
It's
So you
limitless.
can, absolutely 100% sit and do, and people practice. I've done it many times. I have friends and relatives that sometimes live geographically far away. I can't get to them, and maybe they're going through something. They are having a procedure done, they're in pain on something, whatever, emotional or physical, right? And I will just sit, and you can, if it helps, some people like to look at a picture of the person, some people don't need that. Again, there's no hard and fast rules. And that's what I always try to tell people. There's guidelines, but just anything, and it
Right.
so well, it's very easy for us to get caught up in our heads, right? And
In the procedures and the processes, especially when you're starting out, when really it's so universal and it's so freeing because everyone has their own way of sending love or sending healing or their thoughts or their, it's really just the intention. It's intention. It's love. That's really what Reiki is, at least to me. That's how I would describe it. It's just like sending waves of energy of pure love to the person that's open to receiving, because that's another thing. Some people may say they want to have Reiki treatments, but really be in fear or really not be completely open to that. Could you talk a little bit about that? Those that decide they want to do it, but at the same time, they're kind of creating those blockages within
First off, the one
themselves.
thing that is, well, there's actually two things I want to say. Number one, going back to just the rules and procedures, right? I can tell you from my own experience, when I was able to make the shift from worrying so much, and again, part of just kind of, I think, time, right? And kind of just redoing the thoughts, the tapes that we have in our head. But when I was able to like let go of, okay, what are the rules? What are the ways I'm supposed to do it? How, exactly. And let it just kind of free flow more and not worrying. Maybe I end up missing one of the quote unquote spots that there's certain positions, but again, even that's very free form, right? Sometimes you just find yourself drawn to a different spot that's not maybe a traditional, right? Kind of go with
Intuitively
that.
drawn.
Once
Exactly.
the more I started doing that, I absolutely tell you that the reports I got from people and the experience I had as a practitioner felt so much stronger, felt so much more powerful in a very positive way. So that's definitely something that I put out there. The other piece,
And sorry to interrupt you, but what would you say you're removing your ego or your blockages? What was your process? Because there are a lot of folks that are probably tuned in now that are going through the Reiki certification and they're still in that mindset of, am I doing this right? Is this something I can do? Is this real? Am I crazy? So what would you say to them? Because a lot of people say that. They're like, I think I'm crazy. I'm trying to, tap into this universal life force, but how do I know it's happening or I'm doing the right thing? What would
it's
you say to those
okay to
people?
not understand the how it works. I often use this, and I stole this from someone, so I can't take credit for it, but it really is my life-saving thought. I turn on a TV and there's a show and a picture, and I can even change what show is on there and whatever. I could not begin to explain to you how that works. I know there's something about radio waves, and couldn't understand it. It does not take any more of the validity away from the fact that I can turn on the TV and watch a TV show. And you know what? I'm at peace with not understanding the how. I'm at peace with it because I just trust in the reality of and that really, honestly, if you can take whatever analogy you want, if it's a TV for someone, if it's the radio, whatever, but something that you use in your everyday life that perhaps you don't understand the how of it, the science of it, how, I flick a switch and the light goes on. I don't really understand how that works, but it does. And you just say, okay, it's all right. It's that continuous going back to what am I experiencing?
Your center. Yes. And
And it's
trust,
okay if I
right?
don't
Trust in the
understand
process.
maybe every single aspect of it or every answer, because there's so much in life I don't. And that's okay. And honestly, that then starts to feed into a lot more in life in general, because you start to adapt that energy of, all right, I don't necessarily have to have all the answers, because none of us are ever going to have all the answers to everything.
Right. And also, if you think about it, that's also coming from the ego mind, wanting to control and wanting to understand how things are operating so that our ego can have control so we can make sense of it. But there's so many things that are beyond the senses that we don't need to understand the how. As you say, we just have to trust that it's there and it's something that we all have access to. So I'm no different than anyone tuning in here. And Kate, you're no different. We're all the same. We're from like the same cloth. So it's really just diving into that love, that healing energy, the positive, and really, if you have the intention to go forward with Reiki, intention to send energy, love, and energy healing to people, that is really the basis of
Oh,
Reiki to
absolutely.
me. Would you say?
The one thing that is important in terms of a quote unquote rule, and I always hate saying rule, but just a really strong guideline, is you always ask permission to offer Reiki Reiki to someone.
Yes.
And so if you have, you know, and this can happen, let's say you have someone, let's say you have a relationship maybe that's just having real challenges and real problems. I'm thinking of someone I knew who had an ex-husband, and it was just very difficult. And they shared a child, so you know they had to have contact. It wasn't like they could part ways and say goodbye. And you know they kept wanting to do some healing with this, and this person was absolutely not. And they kept saying, "Well, can I send them Reiki anyway?" And I was like, "You really can't. But what you can do is send Reiki to the situation. You can send Reiki to the situation of the relationship." And so she started doing this, and she did this over the course of several months, and she would just offer, and you know, she kept having to consciously pull it back, that she wasn't focused on sending it to relationship.
Him.
And I will tell you again, you know, I always laugh because people go, it was like magic, you know. But one day they happened to be at a shared family thing for their child, you know, and this is what would happen. And usually at this thing, she would always be like, you know, hi, like try to say hi, and he wouldn't even give her the time of day. It would be like hi, and he'd turn away, you know. And they were at this shared family thing, and he walked up to her and went, "Hey, how's it going?" She said her mouth dropped open.
Wow.
Now, I'm not trying to say they're now best buddies, right? But they actually opened up. There was a healing that
they were cordial.
Absolutely. And she was just blown away. You know, the other example you had mentioned earlier, when you said if someone is hesitant, if they don't really understand it, they don't maybe necessarily believe it. I will always share this as my best example is, as I said, my birth family that I, you know, was born into, not of this anything in this world. My father was a very traditional, that kind of skeptical, you know, diehard Irishman who, like, I know nothing about any of this. I often joke when I was getting my doctorate in naturopathy, and people would say, "What is she getting her, you know, a doctorate in?" And he was so excited about education, but he would literally go for years and go voodoo, like it was just, it had to be something bizarre. So when he was in his, I guess, 70s, my father was a very active man, and he loved walking, and he had got a meniscus, and he became, you know, it got progressively worse. And again, he was very high pain tolerance, so he could put up, but he couldn't, he started needing a cane. He had been in a walking club that would walk miles, and, you know, he had to stop that, and he was so unhappy. So he decided he was going to have surgery for it. And so it was probably about a month before his surgery. And I said to him, "Listen, you're set for your surgery. You're good to go. So humor me." And I went with his personality. I said, "Let's do it as so you can prove me wrong." And he was like, "Oh, okay." Yeah. I said, "Prove me wrong." I said, "Let me just do Reiki on you while you're waiting for your surgery. Like, I'm just going to," and I also did, just so you know, I also offered him like some essential oils. That's another tool that I like to use a lot.
Oh, I love essential oil. I'm obsessed. Well, that could be a whole nother podcast with you on.
Oh my gosh.
On
And they
essential
do,
oils.
and they blend beautifully with Reiki and all of that. So I basically would start doing where I would do Reiki on him, like I think it was like twice a week. I would send it long distance on other days. And then he would also utilize some of the oils. And so I never asked him about it. And my mother would, you know, call me, and she'd be like, "Oh, you know, Dad's doing it." And my father, again, I had to literally do this just so people are aware, almost like the form of a prescription, like, because that's so traditional minded. He needed to know exactly like how many drops of oil, what times of day, how does the rate, you know, the whole thing. And so we did it. And then over time, the phone call started. My mother would be like, "He wasn't using the cane today," or, "Oh, he didn't complain today. He didn't need to take the ibuprofen," or whatever. So about a week before, when he went in for the pre-surgical, you know, testing and all of that, and the doctor, and they do the exam, and they took the x-rays, he goes back in, the doctor comes into the office, and he looks a little perplexed, and he says to my father, "Have you been doing something? Been happening?" And oh no.
I hope he admitted to it.
So he kind of just did this kind of, he got very uncomfortable. My mom said he was like squirming, and he went, "Well, you know, I'm doing some exercises I found on the internet." And so the doctor, again, he's like shaking his head. He goes, "Well, I'm not really quite sure what you're doing, but whatever it is, I would keep doing it. And he goes, but I cannot authorize now surgery because it actually improved to the
Wow.
point that it's not medically necessary and you don't seem to be in the discomfort. He goes, so we'll keep an eye on it, we'll monitor it, and should it change, then we can always reevaluate. Well, my father lived another 18 years and never used a cane again,
Wow.
except at the very end, and that was because he had cancer and he needed it for stability. He never had to have the surgery, rejoined his walking club, but to the day he died, he would always say, well, I'm sure it's a coincidence. And the but was
Oh,
very important because he loved it. In fact, when he did have cancer, he would ask me to do Reiki with him because for people to know, one of the benefits, there's so many benefits. It's such a
oh my gosh, the list could go on and on. But yeah, like we'll definitely now you can get into what are the benefits
oh,
of Reiki for those who are interested and they're not sure. Like, is it just physical ailments or is it just deeper work? Like,
any
how would
and
you
all.
describe that? The benefits?
Actually, what's really beautiful is, let's start first with the medical piece of it, or the physical piece of it. It is a beautiful, beautiful thing. And what's really wonderful and exciting is that it's starting to now get recognized by hospitals and
Oh yeah.
doctors. In fact, Dr. Oz, his wife, some people don't know this, is a Reiki master. And so he has always, in his operating rooms, when he does his heart surgeries, had a Reiki practitioner in the operating room performing Reiki on the patient. And they have done now studies and stuff where they've seen that people who get Reiki either during a procedure or, right after, whatever, yes, they heal,
They
their
go
recovery is
faster.
faster. They tend to need less pain management medications. Um, and so, it's a really beautiful thing because what it's doing, it's helping the body facilitate what the body knows how to do. Again, the more clear your, right, our bodies
Wonderful
are
healing,
brilliant. They know what to
exactly.
do and they can pretty much take care of it. But you have to set the right environment for them. So Reiki.
The right intention. And so going a little bit back when we were about to speak about the spiritual aspects of it. So you were beginning to say that it's not a religion, it's not religious. So what about those people that a little bit in fear? Like I never studied this, or this wasn't either in the Bible, or I don't believe in this. What would you say to those who are still embarking on or trying to figure
Right.
out whether Reiki
That
is
is
for them
the
or
thing that
not?
I love about it, is that it is not connected or attached to any religion, except for the one piece of that we can find pretty much in any organized religion, right? Because there's many people who say, well, I'm not religious, but I'm very spiritual, right? But the connecting factor, that if you are someone who identifies as religious, meaning that simply that there is comfort that you find, a belief system that you find that is connected to an organized type of religion. So again, it could be Catholicism, it could be Judaism, Buddhism, any Muslim, any of, organized religions that we know.
Right.
The one factor that all those religions have, no matter how different a lot of, whether the books that they read, the names that they offer to, to their higher power, etc., but it's love. Like, that is something that I have yet to encounter a religion that does not believe in love. And Reiki is love. So Reiki is
Right.
something that, again, it's that universal connector, and it's not tied to any specific ideology, any specific belief system. You could be an atheist and still be comfortable with Reiki, because again, it's not saying then that you have to believe in something other than that universal spirit and energy of love. And so that is what is such a beautiful thing about it, because, it isn't threatening to anyone's, whatever brings that person.
Whatever their belief system is. So would you say it's almost complementary? It would complement that,
Complementary
yeah,
medicine.
whatever
I
they
mean, that's
believe
why
in.
too, again, going back to even with, the hospitals now opening themselves up to that, they'll have Reiki people on staff, because I know what I was saying with my dad later on when he did have cancer and he was going through chemo. It's a beautiful thing to help alleviate some of the side effects that can come if people are going through the process of chemo, right? So it helps that way, but it's also, again, it's very nurturing emotionally for people.
And it's gentle. It's a very gentle, loving. It's a lot of people describe it when they're receiving sessions with me as just love or warmth, or they feel like super peaceful, super at ease. Why do you think that is? Why are they all feeling that? That's like the base energy of what they feel
Right.
after receiving the
Absolutely.
Reiki treatment.
Again, because it is such that super surge, right? That high wattage of love, of that energy. And, that is an energy that is, again, it's so powerful and yet is the first energy to get blocked in today's world. And so many of us now, and that's, I think, a lot of what we see in the world, right? There's so much blockage to love. And it then creates so many complications emotionally with other people and even within ourselves. And so oftentimes I'll say to people with Reiki, I'll be like, the experience is different for every single person, and it can differ from session to session for the same individual. Sometimes you may feel,
Right.
I always say, first off, it will never hurt. So that's number one. And I think that's the other piece, what you were saying, what people are also feeling, because when you feel such strong love, think of a time when you perhaps just felt you knew you were in that zone of love. I often
It just, the peace just naturally
and
flows and it follows
safety.
that calm, that
When
peace.
you are in a
Right.
situation where let's maybe think of someone very special in your life, right? And that person is there right with you in a moment. Sometimes there's that intensity, right? And you feel that, but there's also usually people will
Yes.
say a feeling of safety. So Reiki brings people that feeling of safety in a world that can be really hard to find for people. And so once we
Yes.
do have that feeling of
Yes.
safety, though, that is when we do allow ourselves.
To let go. Yes. To
So
relax
often,
and to finally let go. It's so beautiful. What the main thing that I love about Reiki is that when I'm actually working on a patient, I actually feel the love too. So it's like it's almost as if we're having this loving exchange of energy. It just feels so peaceful. So they're feeling and they're receiving the healing that they need wherever they need it, because that's the universal life force coming in. Because everyone will come in and they'll have specific areas or even soul deeper levels where they're dealing with trauma. So everyone will have something different that they're working on, but that the end result for the practitioner, we always feel like energized or happy, filled with love and just peace. It's just a very peaceful
oh,
modality that I
absolutely,
love so much.
absolutely. And sometimes people might experience like almost like a tingling, you know, they might experience
Yes, heat,
different
cold,
sensations.
different
Or
sensations.
sometimes people don't really experience anything. They will often, pretty much across the board, though, everyone says, "Oh, I just feel very relaxed." Like that is everyone comes away with.
Yeah, very
But even
calm.
when they say something like, "Oh, I love this. I've had this happen so often, and I'm sure you have as well," where, somebody might say, "Oh, yeah, I didn't really feel anything. I feel really relaxed." It's not that they're unhappy. They're just saying, "I didn't feel anything," and that's fine. Don't worry. That does not mean that it wasn't helpful to you. And then sometimes they'll reach out to me like a day or two later and they'll go, I have to just tell you, it was so interesting. I've been bothered, the past couple of weeks with I don't know, a stiff neck or a headache that was just, and they didn't even mention it coming in, but it's just something that they've had. And they go, and ever since I had the Reiki session, it's been, so
It's
it's like,
done.
yup, so it's that again, there's that piece, there's that leap part that you have to just take and understand that it's so subtle. It's such a subtle, like you said, gentle form of energy work. And, the power is in its subtlety sometimes. It doesn't always have to be big fireworks, right?
Right. Right. And it's also, and it's funny because I feel that the first time a patient will come in, especially if they're new, they're so afraid and they're so like not sure. But then the second time they come in, it's almost like they just really want to be there. Like they just have that relaxed, I'm happy to be here. I feel so good since the last session. So it's again, I also feel that the more they come, the more benefits they receive from it, because it's almost as if they're opening up to it more, they're relaxing more, they're letting go of the ego more, and that in turn is helping them heal their inner wounds too, because now they're not so much in the how is this working, but like I'm open to receiving the healing that I need for my highest greatest good. And so I definitely feel that, you know, Reiki is just such a loving form of therapy for all, whether they're people that are working on emotional issues or physical ailments. It really, or even just to feel relaxed, even to get into like a nice meditative space where you feel grounded and centered. Like I like to give
Oh,
myself Reiki before I go to sleep at night. That's what I do. And I just wake up and I just feel at peace. You know, I don't have that feeling of, a lot of people wake up and they feel like either their heart chakra is tight or their stomach, their solar plexus is a little off. I really feel that everyone and anyone can give themselves Reiki. Going back to the attunements though, so that's interesting because I did have someone come. What would you say to someone who is a natural, let's say they're on a spiritual path, whether they're like super psychic, or they're a medium, or they're just open to clairvoyance, all of their clairs. Do you think that Reiki actually enhances that for them? And do they have to be attuned to Reiki in order for them to be able to do Reiki if they are already embarking
I
on a spiritual journey?
think that
What would you
anyone who
say towards
wants to
that?
truly tap into their full Reiki power should get themselves to at least a Reiki level 1 and get one attunement at least. And that's simply because, again, it's just that it's giving you that extra opening piece, right? That being said, though, that definitely, I think, as with anything, the more open that someone is, clearly when someone is in touch with already, because we all have all of the claras, you know, and certain ones maybe gravitate towards more for each individual, right? And, you know, but it's just, again,
Right.
that issue of, you know, like children, babies are so, if you watch them, they're taking in so much,
Oh yeah.
and you know that they're right. And then
They're so
we shut
open.
down, life shuts us down, right? So people that have stayed more in touch with that, right? And so they have that awareness of their empathic skills, their clairvoyant skills, or their clairaudio, you know, any of the claras, right? Um, Reiki will, I believe, it does enhance it, because then even the people that have lost touch with those will oftentimes kind of go, you know, I'm starting to get like weird thing, and they don't understand what's happening. And it's, oh, you're just opening up.
Right. The vivid dreams is really where it starts. The first thing they say is like, I'm having these dreams. I'm dreaming even of symbols, or I felt like someone in their family who had passed had came through, or I'm just seeing the energies, or they're even feeling their environments different. I feel that they actually are becoming more empathic, but in a good way. You know, a lot of people fear being an empath because they're like, oh, I don't want to feel this person's energy. I don't like going on a train because the energy is too much. But really what being an empath is that you're so sensitive, or you are sensitive to feeling, but that you can also give that energy. You can help send back that energy, and if it comes from love, especially if it's coming from a good intention, it's really just like an exchange of energy that's healing. You know what I mean? And that's what I tell people. I say, well, if you're an empath, that's actually a good thing. A lot of people come to me and they're almost like they don't like being an empath. I don't want to be so sensitive. But at the same time, they're embarking on Reiki, and I feel like that's the click for them, because they're like, oh my gosh, like I'm feeling this, and now I get it. Now I feel like I can send this healing energy to this location, to this place, to these people. You see people arguing in front of you. Let's send them, you know, like you said, the situation, send that
Well,
situation healing.
I have
So what
actually a
would you say
very
to
funny
that?
experience with that. So I work in a school system, and what I do in the school system is I work for the whole district. So I take care of the social emotional learning and all of that. And I've been very, very fortunate because they've allowed me to really, I do a lot of work with the children on like meditation and mindfulness, and actually energy, which
Love
is
that.
amazing, right,
Love
for
that.
these kids, and they're very open to it, and you know, and they just think it's incredible. Well, anyway, the funniest piece was, so very often though, they'll talk about like, oh, you have such a calming presence or whatever. And so in the high school, this was going back, I guess it was about a year and a half ago. They went through a period where it was probably springtime. I think it was springtime, which always kind of gets everybody's energy levels up, right? And there was a lot of, it was still during kind of the whole pandemic thing, and people were just in all these very, challenging emotional states and whatnot. And so they were having a lot of challenges in the high school with fights and, just the hallways, it was the ruckus and all of that. And people were very much on edge. And they were sitting in a meeting, the administrators were sitting in a meeting and trying to discuss, like, again, what interventions they wanted to do, whatever. And one of the board members suddenly goes, well, why don't we just have Kate, spend more time, just have her, go up to the high school. And they were like, well, what do you want Kate to do? What program, programs or whatever? No, just have her walk the halls. And it was this huge joke because what they were actually saying, they said, and then the person, they're like, she was trying to explain, she's going, I don't know, it seems calmer when she's there. So just have her walk. Really what they were saying was because people were picking up on that presence, power of energy, right?
Energy.
And then it's that Reiki energy that you bring. And so, absolutely, it can be so, it was very comical, and we were kind of laughing like, okay, that's your answer to the whole world problem, just walk the halls, but it is on a subtle basis that is absolutely true for people, that yes, you start to, the more you become in tune to it. The other piece that is so beautiful, and this is why I love doing Reiki and teaching it to young people as well too, it's so empowering. And so, and I say young
Yes.
people, but honestly too, it's also very, very wonderful if there are people out there that struggle with anxiety, which is a growing problem for so.
Even depression, a lot of people that might be depressed or might be having these struggles, it really just gives them hope. It's like that hope. It gives them empowerment. It makes them feel like, wow, I have more center. They feel a lot
Also,
more
right,
grounded
because when they do
Reiki.
it and they can comfort. So someone who perhaps deals with anxiety and struggles with panic attacks, right? That's definitely one of the tools I'll teach them, is about self-Reiki, right? And it really can be almost, again, just magical how it can help someone in a panic attack and get them from that level 10 down to even a 6 or 7, right? Which that may not sound like much, but for a person in a panic attack, that's huge, right? And
That's
so,
huge. Yeah.
but with children, it's so, so empowering, because what we are teaching them, and I use my son as an example. He grew up with Reiki and always learning about it. And so when he was very little even, and I'm talking like 3, 4 years old, if he got a stomach ache, he would know, he would come. And I remember him always saying, Mama, I need some Reiki because my belly's hurting. Instead of, Mama, I'm sick. Oh no, I need a doctor.
No.
It was like he knew. And as he
Yes.
got older, at a very young age, and as he got older, he would literally do it, and he would know certain times, and you'd see him just placing his hand on himself or on it. And again, what a beautiful tool to give, that we don't always have to run to the outside.
Exactly. And it's also fear. A lot of times when people go running, it's because they're in fear. So it's also that energy of fear that we're putting towards whatever's happening. So I truly believe, like, even just saying, wait, we got this. Like, even with my kids, just as you say, whenever they have a little cut or scratch or bruise, the first thing they do is, Mommy, I need your hands. They say, need your hands. And it's just so funny because they don't think, oh, I have to go to the doctor. Thank God, they automatically come and say, Mommy, I need your
Right.
hands, or Mommy, I need your oil. They go right to the oil. They're like, I need arnica. I need arnica oil. And that's like our go-to in the house. It's like, oh, you have a bump or bruise or scratch, let's go to the arnica. It's
And that is
truly like
not,
amazing.
I always want to be clear, that is not to try to say there's no need, it's about anti-doctors or anti-medicine. Trust me,
Oh,
if there's an emergency
no.
situation, if there's serious happening, you want that
Of course.
intervention. That's the beauty of the knowledge we have. However, you mentioned it earlier, and I think it's just so important to circle or highlight that Reiki is such a beautiful complementary thing. So, there was a teacher in my building years ago, and she took a horrible fall down the stairs, and literally face planted, like it was a horrifically severe, horrifically. Um, so of course, obviously the paramedics were there. They were getting her to the hospital, and her family had called me, and I was very close to them, and had said, "Can you come do Reiki? Can you come do Reiki?" This was again going back several years. The hospital, I give them so much credit because it was before it was really kind of, and she was in ICU, she was in a coma. They didn't know, but they let me in.
Wow.
The family insisted and said, we really, whatever. And they let me in. I would see doctors and nurses kind of walking by the room, like shaking their heads, like, I don't know what.
Like
This
what's
woman
happening? Yeah.
went not only to recover, went on to recover, but was returned to teaching, taught for many more years after that before
Wow.
retiring. She's still alive, well, and now I'm not
Wow.
trying to say, oh, because of my Reiki intervention, but that was definitely, I
A
part of what
complimentary.
allowed then the medical interventions to do the work as well. It was opening up the whole thing, and helping to heal, again, helping to heal not just the physical, but the emotional. Sometimes, one of the things we didn't mention, and I'm sure you've seen it on in your practice, sometimes clients and people receiving Reiki will start to cry during a Reiki session.
Oh yeah.
And it's that release emotionally, or sometimes they'll say to you, oh, I had such a breakthrough. Like an emotional thing is something. In fact, my practice, I do a lot of I do like holistic counseling as well, because again, I have the health background. But what I do with many of my clients is they like to do a Reiki session for the first like 20 minutes, and then we go into the counseling session.
And then they're actually clearer. Their minds is much more clear. Now they're like, oh, I can breathe. I can express myself. I have more of a grounded way of talking about this or
Absolutely.
seeing this in a different
Absolutely. So
perspective.
it's an
Total.
interesting, again, there's just so many ways and so many beautiful creative things that you can use it for. And I loved what you mentioned when you said about sleeping. Oftentimes I'll hear people say not just about falling asleep, although that's a definite challenge, but it's that whole, if you wake up in the middle of the night thing, right? I think of the older people who tend to go, I used to sleep through the night, now I have to wake up, whatever. But sometimes, I hear a lot of people talk about, I go to the bathroom, I come back, and all of a sudden my mind kicks, because I've had just enough sleep so that I had,
Right. They start
and
waking up again.
the one thing that I always offer out, and you don't need to be certified in this or anything, this is where you can just use is if you lay on your back, and I myself am not necessarily a back sleeper, but for this, you just lay on your back and you take your hands and you place them over the heart chakra, and you just literally breathe in. And as you're monitoring and just noticing your breath, you don't have to breathe a certain way, but you're noticing your breath. You feel yourself breathing into the heart, and you maybe say, whether it's peace or love or whatever word.
Right. An
I will
affirmation.
tell you,
Yes.
it sounds so simple, because it is, but it is so powerful and helps shut down the brain. And again, most people, I'll tell them, they kind of laugh at me, but I've had more people come back to me later and go, that's right. That worked, right?
It
So I always
works.
say, give
Yeah.
it a shot. You have nothing to lose, do like my father, prove me wrong. I'm okay with that, but it's such a soothing.
Gentle, soothing, loving. And that's what I love. And another thing that I love, like, especially like in my practice, I work with crystals. So I actually do crystal Reiki. So it's like we're working on the patient with Reiki, sending the healing energy, the healing love, but at the same time incorporating with crystals. And other people do it with essential oils. Like we were talking about earlier, you can work with it with essential oils. So how do you think that elevates? And we're going to talk a little bit now about the essential oils before we go, but how would you say working in your practice with the essential oils and
Because
Reiki
again,
will
now
help?
you're just, it's about the sense, right? It's about tapping into the various, you know, areas of our brain. So sometimes, what can help someone again break through some of the blockages they have, the crystals, the essential oils, what they're doing is, they're just, again, it's helping tapping into the energy from a different avenue. So you're just, well,
Effective,
again,
right?
think wattage, right? You're just, again, heightening the wattage, the brilliance of that, you know? I'll tell people if, you know, people like to think about sometimes colors, right? And I used to always do white, but you know what? I have found that different colors for different people bring that. So I say,
So healing, especially greens and purples, you know, because they can also be
absolutely.
associated with the chakras. Um, yeah, that totally brings the Reiki to another level because people also can envision the color. It's something that they can see. Everyone sees the color. They're like red, okay, you know, blue,
So
yellow,
I'll
you know,
say
so
to
it's
them, I'm
easy.
not going to
Yeah,
tell you which color, but you know, think of the color that calls to you right now and feel it filling you. And the crystals are helping to bring that in. And same thing with the oil, you know, the oils tap into us through obviously aroma. Also, our bodies
right,
absorb it when we put it on our skin, when we, you know, it takes it right in and allows it, you know, again, oil, the essential oils are coming from plants, which was really the world's first medicine, you know. So it's the same thing like herbs.
yes,
It's, you know, essential oils and herbal medicine, Chinese herbal medicine are the same thing. It's just that the herbal medicine deals with the dried part of the plant, right? And then the essential oils are the liquid part of the plant, you know, so it's really, again, it comes down
liquid,
to
yes.
preference. You know, some people will swear they love the herbal medicine. I will tell you myself, it's not that I don't like it. For me, it was too hard. It was complicated. Whereas essential oils, again, took, yeah,
It's
I,
already made for you. So sometimes you just have to put it in a carrier oil and that's it, but it's already there. So it's like super quick and super easy. Like for me, if I have a stuffy nose or my allergies are a little active, that's when I'll go get my essential oils and my eucalyptus oil. I have it in a little carrier oil that I pre-made and I just start putting them like in little places and just a little dot
and
goes a
that,
long way.
you know,
It's amazing.
speaking to what you were saying earlier, you know, how we get in our heads, right? About the, am I doing it right? For me, that was a significant piece. With the dried herbs, I was much more, couldn't get out of my head. Am I mixing it right? Am I, you know, in the mortar bowl? Am I, do the proportions right? Whereas the oils to me, it was very easy for me to let go of that initial fear of how many, how much, whatever. Like, for whatever reason, for me, that worked where I could let it go and be like, I'm just going to play and whatever, it'll work itself out. And so, you know, again, that's why I say to people, take that moment. It always comes back, take the moment. And this is where, again, it's as simple as those moments, that pause, your hands, placing them on your heart, and
Mm-hmm.
just every now and then stopping in your day and allowing yourself to take a
Taking
pause, right?
a
And
moment.
taking a couple breaths and almost envision as you're doing it that like rebooting. You know, we do it all the time sometimes with our computers or phones, right? They get a little glitchy, they don't work right, you're swiping, it's not working, the screen. And what do? We all do, we go, up, I gotta reboot the phone. Well, guess what? We're electromagnetic fields ourselves. So just like our phones and our computers can glitch up a little bit, as brilliant as they are or designed, we do that. And so what Reiki can help do is it's the reboot for ourselves. And when it can be a full session, which is just a beautiful indulgence. And I love that. And it's so healing and powerful. But Reiki can take as little as a minute and
Yes.
help
So
yourself
quick.
go, I think I need a reboot. You know, I teach that to the kids in the schools. We call it the reboot. They're like, and the teachers now have picked up on that and they love it, especially in the elementary buildings. And they'll go, class, I think we need a reboot. And the class knows, we're going to sit. We're going to.
Yeah. Yeah, and they get excited because they're almost like it's bringing them into a whole nother energy field of calm, which I totally love. That's so great. I love that you work with children. It's funny because I've been thinking more also about working with children in my practice because I come across a lot of these books that are all about like empowerment and mindfulness for children. I love those books. I have them in the crystal shop, but a lot of parents are coming in seeking this. This is something that they're actually seeking. So even if the child is, let's say, hyperactive and they're seeing someone for that, they also want to have the complementary Reiki or the complementary energy. A lot of people just come to the crystal shop to sit so they can feel the energy because they love it so much because it's a high vibration. I send Reiki, I send healing energy to my space. So it just goes to show you that it's really the intention behind everything. But also if you're working with other, like I work with the crystals or essential oils, as we were just talking about, it just really brings everything, you know, there's no rules. It just brings everything together, and it just makes things so harmonious and loving for them, but also for us. So it's something that I just
Absolutely.
absolutely love.
And I
I just
think just
love.
as a final kind of thought, you know, again, we are seeing what I call almost that the second part of the pandemic. And really what that is, it's the after effect. It's just like, you know, if you, when you go through an
Yeah.
emergency, and we talk about how, you know, the adrenaline gets you through the emergency, and then often talk about after the
Yeah.
emergency happens, or after if there's a death, right?
It's traumatic, and
Right.
people are just kind of like trying to get on with the
But
day, but they're not actually focusing on getting rid of those
right.
thought patterns, that trauma,
Oftentimes
you
people
know,
will say,
healing it.
oh my
Yeah.
gosh, you know, I got through this whole thing. My parent died or whatever. I went through whatever tragedy and I was fine. And then it was like, once everything calmed down, I suddenly got sick, or I got, you know, and that's what we're seeing now. It's like everybody
Right.
got through that whole pandemic because you had to, right? You had no choice. But what we're seeing is that kind of the fallout now, right? It's as everyone's brain has gone from emergency mode, as I call it, to now coming back to more calm mode. Now the red alert system, the whole body's going, oh my God, like what was that, right? That's why we're seeing
Right.
like children dealing with, you know, anxiety issues that we've never, in numbers that we've never seen before, depression rates that we've never seen before. Same thing for adults. So I think right now more than ever, helping and people opening themselves up and learning about some of these things that can help is such a beautiful thing and so valuable.
Kate, I just want to say thank you so much for all of your wisdom and sharing your stories and explaining what Reiki is, but also explaining just what we can do within ourselves, whether it's just taking a moment to take a breather, whether it's placing our hands over our heart. You know, this is our body, this is our energy center, and just giving ourselves that love and healing and just that time, you know, for ourselves, that just goes a long way. So thank you for sharing all of your wisdom, and thank you all for who's tuned in today on the Earth Angel Experience podcast. It's such an honor to have you guys. If you guys have any questions for Kate, or you'd like to speak to her, if you'd like to visit her website, she can be found on liveswithoutlimits.net. You can also find her on Instagram at liveswithoutlimits36. Kate, is that, do you have any other areas,
Oh,
or can they DM you? How would
yeah,
you prefer them
absolutely.
to
You know,
contact you?
the website has a direct connection. Anybody, like I said, you can DM, you can go to Instagram, and even on Facebook, it's Kate Finnick, Lives Without Limits. So definitely.
Aw, that's so great. Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you, Kate. I look forward to, I'm going to have you come to the
Oh,
crystal shop so we could do something with children. So we'll be in
absolutely.
touch.
And I'm
We'll
so
definitely be
glad
in
you have
touch on
that
that.
space for people. I think it's so wonderful and beautiful.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you,
Bye-bye.
everyone. Have a blessed day. Bye, everyone. Thank you.